So when you're adding a negative number to a positive number like this, you actually want to subtract from the positive number. How does that work? Well, you might be a little confused if you've been used to working with what we call the counting numbers. So in instances like 5 plus 4, this equals 9. And in 6 plus 11, we would get 17 because we would count up here. We would count up by 4 from 5 and get 9. And here, we would count up by 11 from 6 to get 17. But in the instance of 5 plus negative 2, what we actually are doing is we are adding a negative number. So try to imagine a number line here, right? And we have 5 up here. And normally if we were adding a positive number, we would go up. But because we're adding a negative number like this, it basically acts like subtraction. Another way we could write this is by just writing 5 minus 2, because this negative here for the addition is actually just going to, well, it's going to negate the addition sign, and it's just going to become 5 minus 2. So we just count it down by 2 steps, and that would bring us to 4, and finally to 3, and 3 would be our final answer here. Similarly, if we had something like 20 plus negative 13, well, this would basically just become 20 minus 13, because when you are adding a negative number to a positive number, you're basically subtracting from that positive number. And this will give you 7, because 20 minus 13 equals 7. What if we had something else, though? What if we had something a little bit more like this? Negative 13 plus 2. So we're actually doing something a bit different here, very similar principle, but we are taking a negative number and now we're trying to add to it. Well, we're actually counting up, and try to imagine the number line again. So we have a number line here, and let's say we had 0 over here, and we had like positive numbers over here. So you had like 1, 2, and 3 would be over here. Negative 13 would be back here somewhere, because this is lower than 0. Negative 13 is actually less than 0. So if we were to count up 2 steps from here, we would go to negative 12 and finally to negative 11. So our final answer would be negative 11 for this equation. Similarly, if we had negative 15 and we wanted to add 12 to it, we would go through a similar process, and in a certain sense we would basically subtract from the number you see here. Even though we're technically adding, it may seem like subtraction because we're counting up from a number that's less than 0. So we can actually think about it like subtracting 12 from 15. And if we were to subtract 12 from 15, that would give us 3. But because the negative number is, well, the number that's attached to the negative sign is greater, it's actually going to be negative 3. So something to remember when you're doing this is whichever sign has the greater value is the sign that's going to remain on your answer. And I'll give you some more examples soon. Let's say we had negative 5 plus 7. We would look at the number that seems the largest regardless of whether it's positive or negative. In that case, it's 7. And because the 7 is positive, we actually know that our answer is going to be positive rather than negative when we are working with addition like this. And so we can actually just rewrite this as 7 minus 5, because it doesn't necessarily matter which sequence we order these in, as long as the basic operation remains the same. So 7 minus 5 is going to give you 2, but more specifically, it's going to give you positive 2. And we knew that the answer would be positive because we looked at the number that would seem the largest without a negative or positive sign, and we saw that it was positive, so our answer would be positive for that reason. Let's say we had something similar. Let's say we had negative 3 and we wanted to add 12 to it. Let me rewrite that. So we look at whatever's largest. In this case, that's the 12. Well, the number that seems the largest without the sign at least, but it is positive 12 in this case because 12 is greater than 3. So we know that our answer is going to be positive, and we could just rewrite this as 12 minus 3. This is going to give us 9. Now let's say we had something like 5 plus negative 11. This is where it can get a little tricky, because here the negative number actually seems to be larger. Not thinking about the signs, 11 is greater than 5. So how do we think about this? Well, we kind of can think about it like subtraction. But first, let's just make it clear what sign we're going to have for our final answer. We know it's going to be negative because irrespective of the negative or positive signs attached to either of these, 11 is greater than 5. So we know we're going to wind up with something negative as our final answer. So we can take down here, I'll use another color. Because we have something like this, right? We would have a number line. So 0 would be here, and we have like negative 11 here. Because we're counting up by 5, it's going to be like negative 10, negative 9, negative 8. I forgot to write the negative signs even, but it's going to look like the value's actually getting lower, even though it's actually technically getting higher because it's getting closer to 0. So what do we do? Well, we can kind of think about it like subtraction, right? If we were to take 11, well, I'll use a different color for this as well. Hold on. Use red. If we were to take 11 and subtract 5 from it, we would get 6. But we know the answer is going to be negative, so we can actually just write negative 6 here, and that would be our final answer. I'll give you one more example. Let's say we had something like 2 plus negative 5. We can see that 5 is greater than 2. It has a negative sign there, so we'll just put a negative here. And we just do on the side, we do like 5 minus 2. That is going to give us positive 3. But actually, negative 3 will be our final answer because we were counting up from negative 5. So negative 3 is our final answer. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. If you are interested in more tutorials related to mathematics, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. And if you're interested in online tutoring, check out the description of this video. You may find something helpful.